Young bride skipped her wedding to help an injured woman, and then a prince showed up at her door. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The morning of Charlotte Bennet's wedding began long before the sun rose, with the scrape of chairs and the soft thud of hurried footsteps along the narrow corridor. "Charlotte, sit still, child," the seamstress muttered, needle between her lips. "If you twitch again, I shall stab you, and then see what your fine groom says to a bride with blood on her sleeve." Charlotte tried to laugh. It came out thin. "I am not twitching," she said. "I am merely breathing." Her mother, Mrs. Bennet, paced behind them, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles showed pale. "Breathing is all very well," she said, "but do remember that today the entire town will be breathing with you. Reverend Hales has had the church polished until it shines. Mrs. Weaver has baked 8 cakes. Your father has not slept. Edward's family has invited half their acquaintances. There is no room for uncertainty, Charlotte, only joy, joy and composure." Charlotte met her own eyes in the small looking glass. The girl who stared back wore white satin and lace and a wreath of orange blossoms. She looked like a bride in a storybook, arranged, immaculate, pleasing. She did not look like a woman about to make a choice. "I understand, Mamma," she said softly. "I shall be composed." Her mother leaned over her shoulder and adjusted a loose curl. "You are making an excellent match," she reminded her. "Edward is respected already, and he will be more so in a few years. He will be kind to you. You will have a safe home. Think of the security, dear. Think of your sisters. If this goes well, it lifts us all." Charlotte nodded. She had thought of little else for weeks. Safety, security, respectability. All the heavy, sensible words grown people loved. And yet, beneath them, another word had been whispering. If this life was wrong for her, if Edward's careful politeness never warmed into real tenderness, if she woke each day beside a man she did not quite understand, and felt, very quietly, alone. Her younger sister, Emma, burst into the room then, saving her from further thoughts. "Oh, Charlotte, you look beautiful," Emma breathed, skidding to a halt before the dress. "Edward will faint. Or he would, if he had any dramatic sense at all." "Emma," their mother said sharply. "What? He is very good, but he is not dramatic," Emma replied without apology. She bent to whisper in Charlotte's ear. "If you decide at the last moment that you cannot do it, I shall pretend to swoon, and you may climb out of the vestry window." Charlotte smiled in spite of herself. "I am not climbing out of any windows." "Good," Mrs. Bennet said crisply, "because it would ruin the skirt." The joke faded, and silence crept in again. The seamstress made a final knot and stepped back. "There," she declared, "you are finished." The words felt ominous, as if something other than the dress had been completed. Her father appeared in the doorway, hat already in hand, coat brushed until it shone. "Charlotte," he said quietly. She turned. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Mr. Bennet's eyes were not bright with excitement, as her mother's were. They were softer, more searching, as if he, more than anyone, understood that something was being sealed. "You look very pretty, my dear," he said at last. "Edward is a fortunate man." "Thank you, Papa." He stepped forward and took her hand. "If at any point today you cannot breathe," he murmured so only she could hear, "tell me." Her throat tightened. "I shall be quite all right," she answered. "Truly." He squeezed her fingers once, gently, and released them. "The carriage is ready," he said aloud. "We must not keep an entire congregation waiting." The next moments passed in a blur. Cloak over her shoulders, gloves smoothed, a kiss on her mother's cheek, Emma's whispered promise to wave wildly from the front pew, her younger brother Thomas's clumsy bow, the hum of voices from the front of the house, the scent of flowers everywhere. Outside, the small hired carriage waited, polished within an inch of its life. Ribbons trailed from the lamps. The coachman tugged his hat respectfully as Charlotte emerged and climbed up with her father's help. Town women stood by their garden gates, pretending to tidy, watching with frank interest. Men paused with their tools on their shoulders. Children whispered, eyes wide. Charlotte smiled because it was expected. "How are you feeling?" her father asked once they were settled and the wheels began to roll. She watched the familiar cottages slide by. "I feel," she said slowly, "as if I am standing at the edge of something and cannot see the ground below." Her father's expression tightened. "We need not speak in images, my dear," he said. "Do you feel you can go through with this?" She hesitated. Words balanced on her tongue and did not fall. "Yes," she said instead. "I can." He watched her for another long moment, then nodded, as if settling some internal argument. "Very well, then we shall." The carriage moved through the main street, where the crowd grew thicker. People nodded, some called blessings. A few children ran alongside for a few yards, laughing. Charlotte glimpsed the church spire ahead, white against the pale sky. The bells began to ring, slow and solemn, and then as they turned past a narrow side road, she saw her. A woman lay half in the ditch, half on the rough verge, one arm crooked beneath her, skirts twisted. Her grey hair had come loose from its pins. No one knelt beside her. People gave her a wide berth, glancing and then looking away, as if proximity to misfortune might be contagious. Charlotte's hand shot out, catching the side of the carriage. "Papa," she said sharply, "do you see?" Mr. Bennet leaned forward. "I see someone has slipped," he replied, troubled. "Perhaps someone from the poor cottages. The sexton will have been sent for. There is always some confusion on big days. We must not delay now, Charlotte." The coachman, hearing the exchange, flicked the reins to urge the horse on. "Stop," Charlotte said. Her father turned to her in surprise. "My dear." "Stop the carriage," she repeated louder. The coachman faltered, looking back. "Miss?" "Do as she says," Mr. Bennet ordered, though his voice betrayed reluctance. The carriage juddered to a halt. Distantly, the bells continued to ring. "Charlotte, listen to me," her father said quickly. "If we step down now, tongues will wag. People are watching. They will think something is wrong." "Something is wrong," Charlotte answered. She pointed toward the woman. "There, that. She is hurt." "She may simply be resting," he protested weakly. "I am sure someone else will attend to her. This is your wedding day. There is a church full of guests, a groom at the altar. A groom who would prefer I ignore a person lying in the road is not a groom I wish to marry," Charlotte said, surprising herself with the sharpness in her voice. Her father stared at her. "You cannot mean—" "I do not know what I mean," she cut in, "only that I cannot sit here and ride by." Before he could stop her, she gathered her skirts and stepped down onto the road. The air felt suddenly cold, though the day was fair enough. Voices rose from the crowd as people realized the bride had left her carriage. "Miss Bennet," someone called. "Miss Bennet, the church is that way." "Charlotte!" Mr. Bennet hissed from the carriage. "For heaven's sake, child, think." She walked toward the fallen woman. Up close, the figure did not look like one of the village beggars. Her gown, though dusty, was of decent cloth. Her boots were well made. A small brooch gleamed faintly at her throat. Deep lines marked her face, but there was a delicacy in the hands, a fineness about the mouth. "Madam?" Charlotte knelt, her wedding dress brushing the dirt. "Madam, can you hear me?" The woman's eyelids fluttered. A faint sound emerged from her lips, more sigh than word. Charlotte touched her shoulder gently. "Are you in pain? Can you move? Where?" The woman's voice was hoarse. "I was walking, and then we must fetch someone," Charlotte said. She looked around at the growing ring of onlookers. "Will no one help me carry her?" There was a murmur. People shifted. A few men glanced at one another, then away. "Miss, the vicar is waiting," a woman called. "You will have plenty of time for charity later." "Yes, let one of the farm lads see to her," another added. Charlotte's cheeks burned. "Is there no man among you," she demanded, "who can lift an injured lady from the road while I stand here in a wedding gown?" A stable boy, perhaps 15, with straw in his hair and sleeves rolled up, stepped forward cautiously. "I can, miss," he said, "if Master Briggs will spare me." The farmer he worked for frowned, then shrugged. "Go on then," he said. "But do not be long." "Thank you," Charlotte said to the boy. What is your name?" "Will, miss." "Will, can you help me carry her to that cart yonder? We shall take her to my father's house. Mamma will not turn her out, however much she scolds me." Mr. Bennet had descended from the carriage by now. "Charlotte," he said in an undertone as they worked, "think about what you are doing. The church is expecting us. Edward is expecting us. You leave him waiting at the altar." She met his eyes, hands already beneath the woman's shoulders. "If you had been lying in this road when you were courting Mamma," she said quietly, Would you have wished her to pass you by? Because it was inconvenient? He closed his mouth. For a second, the corner of it twitched. Very well, he said. We shall be called lunatics, but very well. Will, mind her head, gently now. Between them, with great care, they lifted the woman and carried her toward a small farm cart, its bed empty, waiting near the inn yard. The farmer, seeing them struggle, grumbled but did not refuse when Mr. Bennet offered payment. "Where am I?" the woman murmured again as they settled her on a blanket. "You are safe," Charlotte said. "You have had a fall. We are taking you to my home. The doctor will see you." "Home," the woman repeated faintly, as if testing the word. Her eyes flickered open, focusing on Charlotte's face for the first time. Something like recognition. No, not recognition, perhaps appraisal, passed through them, quickly gone. She exhaled and closed her eyes again. Mr. Bennet turned to the coachman. "Drive to the church," he said heavily. "Tell Reverend Hales there has been an incident. I shall follow as quickly as I am able." Charlotte straightened, dirt on her gloves, her skirts smudged. "I'm not coming to the church, Papa," she said. The words fell between them like a stone. "Do not be absurd," he replied at once. "You must stand up with Edward at least. The rest can be explained. We will send the woman on with a maid." Charlotte shook her head. "I will not leave her," she said. "Not while she is unconscious, not until the doctor has seen her. I cannot." "Charlotte," he rarely said her name in that particular tone. It held warning, pleading, and paternal authority all at once. "You are about to throw away your future," he said hoarsely. "Think, once the bells stop and everyone understands you did not appear, there will be no way to undo this. Edward's pride will not bear it." Charlotte felt the weight of his words press against her chest. She imagined the church, flowers, guests, Reverend Hales clutching his Bible, Edward at the altar, his mother with her pinched, satisfied expression. She imagined walking up the aisle, saying the words, signing her name, becoming Mrs. Edward Harrow, respectable wife. She imagined this woman, left lying in the road because everyone preferred to hurry to cake and ceremony. "I should like to be the kind of wife," she said slowly, "who does not walk away from a person in distress. If I begin my married life by doing so, I am not sure what kind of woman I shall be in 10 years' time." A strange, fierce calm settled over her as she spoke. "I am sorry, Papa," she said. "I know what this will cost, but I cannot." He stared at her, torn. Then, with a resigned exhale that seemed to carry years in it, he nodded once. "Then I shall go to the church alone and explain that my daughter has been delayed by an act of mercy," he said. "Whether they believe me is another matter entirely." He helped Will climb up beside the woman in the cart. "I will ride with them," Charlotte said. "Will you tell Mama?" "I shall tell her everything," he answered with a weary smile. "I may leave out the part where you compared me to a man lying in a ditch. That may be too much for her nerves." The attempt at humor nearly undid her. "Thank you," she whispered. He took her hand and kissed her forehead. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "you are my daughter. That does not change." Then he turned, climbed back into the carriage and rode away toward the church, toward the expectations she had just walked away from. The farm cart jolted as it started. Charlotte held the side with one hand and steadied the woman with the other. Will clicked his tongue at the horse. "Begging your pardon, miss," he said after a moment, "but they will talk, you know." "Oh, they talked before," Charlotte replied. "Now they shall have something more interesting to say." The ride to the Bennet house felt longer than usual. Every person they passed turned to stare, the bride in dusty satin, the unknown woman lying motionless in the cart. By the time they turned into the narrow lane leading to the Bennets' modest home, Charlotte's cheeks had ceased to burn. They were simply numb. Mrs. Bennet rushed out as soon as she heard the wheels. "Charlotte, what under heaven?" She stopped, seeing the cart's occupant. "Who is that?" "A lady we found in the road," Charlotte said, climbing down. "She was injured. I brought her here." "You brought a stranger here," her mother repeated faintly. "On your wedding day." "Where else should I have taken her?" Charlotte asked. "We could not leave her there." Mrs. Bennet pressed a hand to her temple. "Bring her in," she said after a moment. "I suppose we are already ruined. We may as well add charity to the list." They carried the woman carefully into the house. "Mrs." Bennet directed them to Charlotte's room. "Not the parlor," she muttered. "If anyone calls, they must not see this." "Oh, Charlotte, what have you done?" Charlotte ignored the last part. She pulled back the coverlet on her bed and helped Will ease the woman down onto the mattress. For a moment, the woman's eyes opened again. "This is my room," Charlotte said gently. "You are safe here. The doctor is coming." "Your room," the woman whispered. "You gave your bed, of course." The woman's hand twitched, as if she meant to reach for Charlotte's, then fell limp once more. The local doctor, Mr. Avery, arrived not long after, breathless and disordered, having apparently been intercepted on his way to the church. "I had been promised cake," he grumbled as he set down his bag, "and now I find myself summoned here instead. Miss Bennet, I hope this is truly urgent." Charlotte stepped aside so he could see the woman. "I believe it is," she said. He sobered at once, bent over the bed, checked pulse, pupils, limbs. He murmured. "No broken bones that I can detect. A bump to the head, perhaps. Exhaustion. She has passed a shock of some kind. She needs rest, quiet, and perhaps a broth when she wakes. Do you know her name?" "No," Charlotte said. "She has not given it." "Her clothing is of quality," he noted. "Not a commoner. You have stumbled upon some mystery today, Miss Bennet." "That seems to be the theme of the day," she answered. He glanced at her, then at Mrs. Bennet hovering in the doorway. "Your husband tells me there is talk at the church," he said carefully. "They are not used to brides abandoning their weddings for roadside rescues." Mrs. Bennet made a small, strangled sound. "They say she has run away," she burst out, "that she has changed her mind, that she has disgraced her fiancé, his family, us, everyone. Oh, Charlotte, people will never forget this." Charlotte folded her arms over her borrowed apron. "They will have a story to tell at supper for many weeks," she said. "I am sorry for the pain I have caused you, Mama. I truly am. But would you really rather I had left this woman lying in the road so that the vicar might begin on time?" Mrs. Bennet opened her mouth, then closed it again. Tears shone in her eyes. "I would rather," she said brokenly, "that fate had not required you to choose between decency and duty on the same morning." Dr. Avery straightened. "She will live," he said. "She must not be moved for at least a day. You have done her a service, Miss Bennet, whatever the cost elsewhere." He packed his instruments, made a few further recommendations, and left, muttering about missing his slice of wedding cake. The house felt oddly quiet after he went. The ticking of the clock in the parlor sounded louder than usual. Through the slightly open window, Charlotte could hear distant church bells tolling the end of a service that had never properly begun. "Did the ceremony take place at all?" she asked, turning to her mother. Mrs. Bennet sank onto a chair. "There was no ceremony," she said dully. "Your father says Reverend Hales waited, hoping you would appear. Edward stood like a statue. His mother whispered like a viper. When it became clear you were not coming, your father explained about the woman in the road. Half the church thought it an excuse. The other half thought you mad. Edward removed the ring from his pocket, thanked the guests for attending, and left without a word." Charlotte pressed her hand to her mouth. "Did he send no message?" she asked in a small voice. "None. His mother did." Mrs. Bennet's tone sharpened. "She said the engagement is broken. She said their family does not associate with people who make a spectacle of themselves. She said—" "That is enough," Charlotte interrupted quietly. "I understand." In the small bedroom, the woman on the bed breathed steadily, oblivious to the ruin her presence had brought down upon her rescuer's head. "What are we to do now?" Mrs. Bennet whispered. "Who will marry you? Who will marry Emma when everyone knows what her sister has done? Your father is not a wealthy man. You have destroyed your prospects, Charlotte." Charlotte looked at her sleeping guest. "I did not destroy them," she said calmly. "I exchanged them." "For what?" her mother demanded. Charlotte searched for an answer and found only a hollow, wordless space where her old life had been. "For the knowledge that I am not a coward," she said at last. "If that is all I have, it will have to be enough." Her mother covered her face with her hands. "Your father will be home soon," she said. "We shall talk more then. For now, stay with her then. It seems you have chosen your company." She left the room, shutting the door with more force than was necessary. Charlotte sat by the bed as the light shifted, moving gradually from one side of the room to the other. At times the woman muttered in her sleep, fragments of phrases that made no sense. "Not the ledger. I must speak to—" "No, not yet." Charlotte wiped her brow, adjusted the blanket, held a cup of water to her lips when she stirred. The house sighed and settled around them. Once or twice, Charlotte heard raised voices in the parlor, her mother's sharp, her father's low and strained. She knew they were speaking of her. She remained where she was. Toward evening, Emma slipped in, eyes red. "Charlotte," she whispered. Charlotte rose and embraced her. "I am sorry," she said. Emma clung to her. "I heard what they are saying in the village," she murmured into Charlotte's shoulder. "They say you ran away. They say you have a lover somewhere. They say you could not bear to marry Edward because you are too romantic and foolish and all sorts of nonsense." "And what do you say?" Charlotte asked, pulling back to search her face. "I say," Emma replied fiercely, "that you saw someone in need and did what no one else dared do, and if Edward does not understand that, then he did not deserve you. But I also say that I do not know what is to become of us now, and it frightens me." Charlotte smoothed her sister's hair. "It frightens me too," she admitted, "but we shall discover it together." Emma glanced at the bed. "Who is she?" she asked. "I do not know," Charlotte said. "The doctor believes she is a lady, her clothes the way she speaks, but she has not yet given her name." "And you gave her your bed. Where else could she lie?" Charlotte asked. "Thomas's room smells of boots. Yours is full of books and sketches." Papa snores. "Mine was the only sensible choice." Emma gave a weak laugh. "You will make me cry again if you keep being noble," she said. "I must go help Mama with supper. She is in a state. I think only activity keeps her from exploding." She slipped out again. The door closed softly. Dusk crept in. Charlotte lit a candle and watched the flame steady itself. The woman's breathing remained even. From time to time she opened her eyes, unfocused, then drifted back into sleep. Once she caught Charlotte's hand with surprising strength. "You should not have stopped," she murmured. "They will be angry. They already are," Charlotte said. "But I cannot regret it." The woman's fingers relaxed. "Good," she whispered. "Then perhaps there is hope yet." Charlotte did not know what she meant. By the time the first stars pricked the sky, Charlotte's own body ached with weariness. She rose to stretch, moving to the small window to look out. The lane outside was quiet now, the earlier bustle gone. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The bells were silent. She wondered where Edward was at that moment. At home, being comforted by his mother. Alone in his room, furious, relieved. The thought of his pale, controlled face at the altar cut through her, and she pressed her hand to the glass. "I am sorry," she whispered to the dark. "I did not mean to hurt you. I simply could not be someone else." Footsteps sounded on the path outside the house, firm, unhurried. Not the light scamper of Emma or Thomas, not the shuffle of Dr. Avery's gait. Voices followed. Her mother's startled exclamation, then her father's pitched low and astonished. "Good evening, sir," she heard him say. "This is an unexpected honor." An honor. Charlotte frowned. Honor was not a word her father used for neighbors. A moment later there was a knock at the front door. Not a tentative tap, but a clear, confident rap that echoed down the small hallway and into Charlotte's bones. She glanced at the sleeping woman, then smoothed her skirt and slipped out into the corridor. Her heart beat uncomfortably fast as she passed the parlor, where she glimpsed her mother gripping the back of a chair, white-faced, and her father standing as if unsure whether to bow. "Charlotte," Mrs. Bennet whispered, "compose yourself for mercy's sake." Charlotte stepped into the narrow front hall. The knock sounded again, measured and firm. She stared at the door, then at her own trembling hand as she reached out. As she reached for the latch, heart hammering in her throat, she had no notion that the simple act of opening that door would change the rest of her life. Charlotte lifted the latch and pulled the door open. On the step stood a man she had never seen before, yet everything about him announced he was not ordinary. He was tall, his dark hair neatly brushed, his coat of superb cut, but without flashy ornament. Behind him waited two other men in plain but well-tailored garments, and in the lane Charlotte caught a glimpse of a carriage finer than any that had ever turned into their narrow street. The stranger removed his hat with an easy, practiced movement. "Miss Bennet?" he asked. His voice was calm, low, and carried without needing to be loud. Charlotte opened her mouth, found no words, and shut it again. Her father appeared at her shoulder, breathless. "Your Royal Highness, Mr. Bennet said, and the words seemed to echo down the hallway. Charlotte's head snapped toward him. "You're—" she began. The stranger inclined his head slightly. "I am Alexander," he said, as if this were introduction enough. Forgive this intrusion. I believe a member of the royal household may be under your roof." Charlotte's fingers tightened on the edge of the door. "The woman from the road," she said. "We found her this morning. She was injured. The doctor said she needed rest and must not be moved. We did not know who she was." Alexander studied her face for a moment, then looked past her into the dim hallway. "May I come in?" he asked. "Time may be important." "Yes," Mr. Bennet said at once. "Of course, sir, please, our home is humble, but you are very welcome." He stepped back. Charlotte moved aside, still trying to reconcile the idea that the man on her threshold, who ducked his head to avoid the low lintel, was the prince whose likeness she had only ever seen in engravings. Alexander entered without fuss, but his presence seemed to enlarge the small hallway. Mrs. Bennet appeared from the parlour, curtsied so low she nearly toppled, and stammered greetings. Emma hovered behind her, eyes like saucers. "Your Royal Highness," Mrs. Bennet gasped. "What an honour! We had no notion, we did not expect—" "Few people expect royalty at their door," Alexander replied, a hint of dry warmth in his tone. "Pray be easy, madam. I have not come on matters of ceremony." His gaze returned to Charlotte. "You say you brought an injured woman here this morning?" he said. "Was she of advanced years, with grey hair and a small silver brooch at her throat in the shape of a sprig of ivy?" Charlotte remembered the glint at the woman's neck. "Yes," she said. "That sounds right." A flicker of relief crossed his features. "Then I believe she is the person I have been searching for since dawn," he said. "We have been most concerned." "Who is she, sir?" Mr. Bennet asked. Alexander hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. "She is called Lady Agnes Fairley," he said at last. "She has served my family for many years, first as a governess to my younger sisters, and later in more confidential capacities. She disappeared from the palace grounds early this morning. No one saw her leave. When she did not return, we feared she might have taken ill or—" He did not finish the sentence. "Finding her here gives me hope." Charlotte glanced toward the staircase. "She is in my room," she said. "The doctor insisted she must lie quietly. She has spoken little." "May I see her?" Alexander asked. "Yes, of course," Charlotte said. "If you will follow me." She turned toward the stairs, then paused, suddenly acutely aware of the dust on her skirt where she had knelt in the road, of the smudged hem of her wedding dress, of the fact that she was leading the heir to the throne up to a cramped bedchamber. "I beg your pardon," she said in a rush. "This is not at all. The house is not—" "It is precisely what it is," Alexander said, "which is more than can be said for many houses I visit. Pray, do not trouble yourself." There was no mockery in his voice, only a certain tired honesty that startled her. She nodded and mounted the stairs, feeling his gaze on the back of her head. In the little room, the air smelled of lavender and candle wax. Lady Agnes lay where Charlotte had left her, her hands folded over the coverlet, her breathing steady. The fading light from the window fell across her lined face. Alexander crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped at the bedside. For a moment the prince disappeared, and there was only a young man who had found someone dear to him. "Lady Agnes," he said quietly. "It is Alexander." Her eyelids fluttered. She made a small sound, then forced her eyes open. They were clouded, but when they focused on his face, they cleared at once. "Your Highness," she whispered, "you should not trouble yourself." "I think I am permitted to trouble myself over the disappearance of my former governess," he said. "Hayu gave the palace a most unpleasant morning." She tried to smile. "An old woman should be allowed an adventure now and then," she murmured, "though this one ended badly." Alexander's expression sobered. "What happened?" he asked. "How did you come to be lying in a country road miles from London?" She frowned, as if searching her memory. "I was walking," she said slowly, "in the gardens. I had much on my mind. I recall a carriage stopping, a voice, a suggestion that I should take the air beyond the walls for a time, clear my head. I remember hesitating. Then dizziness. After that, only fragments, wheels, sky, the sound of nothing at all. Then this young lady's face. Her gaze moved to Charlotte, who hovered awkwardly at the foot of the bed. "She found me," Lady Agnes said. "She insisted I be brought here. She gave me her bed. She has been very kind." Alexander looked at Charlotte properly then, really looked, as if he had only previously seen a shape and not a person. "You found her?" he asked. Tell me exactly what you saw. Charlotte swallowed. I was on my way to the church, she began, and the word snagged in her throat. Our church. I was to be married today. Lady Agnes's eyes sharpened. To be married, she repeated. And instead, you are here. Yes, Charlotte said. We were passing a side road when I saw her lying half in the ditch. People were walking by in their best clothes as if she were invisible. I asked the coachman to stop. I climbed down. She was breathing, but barely responsive. I could not leave her there. So we brought her here, that is all. That is not all, Alexander said quietly. Your father told me downstairs that the congregation is even now discussing the bride who did not appear. Charlotte felt heat rise to her cheeks. I did not think you would have heard already, she said. It is difficult to prevent news from running ahead of my carriage, he replied. Particularly news of a broken wedding. He turned partly toward her. You left your own ceremony to assist a stranger, he said, knowing there would be consequences. Yes, she said simply. Did your groom agree to this? He asked. He does not agree now, Charlotte answered. The engagement is broken. Something flickered across his face. Surprise first, then a grim kind of understanding. I regret that your kindness has cost you so dearly, he said. I regret only the pain I have caused my family, Charlotte said. Not the decision itself. Lady Agnes made a soft sound of approval. Good, she murmured. We must not ration compassion according to convenience. Alexander rested his hand lightly over hers. You must rest, he said. We will speak further when you are stronger. For now, know that you are safe, and that those who care for you are grateful. She closed her eyes again, her lips moving as if in prayer. Alexander stepped back. Charlotte noticed that his shoulders, which had been tight when he entered, had lowered by a fraction. Thank you, Miss Bennet, he said. You have done more than you know. She shook her head. I did what anyone ought to have done, she replied. In my experience, he said, what anyone ought to do and what anyone actually does are rarely the same. He glanced around the room. You have given up your bed to her, he observed. Where will you sleep? On the parlor sofa, I suppose, Charlotte said. Or Emma will insist on sharing. We shall manage. He nodded as if filing this away. May we speak downstairs? He asked. I do not wish to disturb Lady Agnes further. Of course, she said. They left the room together. On the landing, there was a brief awkwardness as they tried to allow one another space. I am not accustomed to walking in front of princes, Charlotte said under her breath. And I am not accustomed to barging ahead of young ladies in their own homes, he replied. We shall descend side by side and confound etiquette on both sides. She gave a startled little laugh, then stifled it, aware of the tension below. In the parlor, Mrs. Bennet stood rigidly by the mantel. Emma perched on the edge of a chair. Mr. Bennet had clearly not known what to do with himself, and had therefore done nothing, which gave him the air of a man rooted to the carpet. They all rose when Alexander entered. Lady Agnes will recover, he said without preamble. Thanks in great part to your daughter's intervention. Mrs. Bennet's eyes filled with tears. We are very glad to have been of service, sir, she said, though I confess we had no idea who she was. We thought perhaps... She faltered, then plunged on. Well, we did not think it would end in a prince in our sitting room. Alexander's mouth curved faintly. Nor did I, he said. Yet here we are. He turned to Mr. Bennet. Sir, I wish to express my gratitude, he said. Your willingness to admit a stranger to your home, to call your doctor, to endure gossip on her behalf, speaks well of you. Mr. Bennet looked both proud and uncomfortable. It was Charlotte's doing, sir, he said. I confess I was thinking more of the vicar's schedule than of the lady's health. I did not understand what my daughter was asking me to be. And now? Charlotte asked softly. He met her eyes. Now I am trying to catch up, he said. Before anyone could say more, heavy footsteps sounded on the front path, followed by a sharp knock that rattled the thin door. Voices drifted in, male, agitated. Mrs. Bennet paled. Oh, heavens, she whispered. He has come. Who? Emma asked, though she plainly knew. Edward, Mrs. Bennet said, and his mother, and likely half the Harrow clan. The knock came again, more insistent. Alexander looked from one face to another. This is your former fiancé? He asked Charlotte quietly. Yes, she said. He has reason to be angry. Anger and reason are not always companions, Alexander observed. Mr. Bennet moved toward the hallway. "I suppose we must face them," he murmured. "We cannot pretend we are not at home with a royal carriage outside." Charlotte drew a breath. "I should speak with him," she said. "It is my burden." Alexander hesitated, then took a step back toward the parlor wall. "I will remain here," he said. "I would not intrude on a private matter without invitation, but if raised voices carry, I confess I am not entirely deaf." There was something in the way he said it that steadied her. She lifted her chin and went to the door. Edward stood on the threshold, as immaculately dressed as he had been meant to be that morning, but the careful order of his cravat did not extend to his face. His expression was thunderous. Behind him, his mother wore an air of wounded dignity sharpened into a blade. "Charlotte," Edward said without greeting. "May I come in?" "Yes," she said. "Please." He stepped over the threshold, then halted abruptly at the sight of the finely dressed men in the parlor, and of Alexander himself, taller than everyone else in the room. Edward blinked, thrown off balance. "I beg your pardon," he said stiffly. "I did not realize you had company." "My lord," Mrs. Harrow murmured to Alexander, dropping a half-curtsy that suggested she knew he was someone of rank but was not entirely certain whom. "Your Royal Highness," Mr. Bennet corrected, almost apologetically. Mrs. Harrow went quite still. Edward's mouth fell open for a fraction of a second before he mastered himself. "Your Royal Highness," he repeated. "I did not anticipate... I had no notion that..." He floundered. Alexander inclined his head. "We may dispense with elaborate formality," he said. "Pray conduct your business as you intended. I am here in part because of Miss Bennet's actions this morning, so I bear some responsibility for the current confusion." Edward's gaze snapped to Charlotte. "Your actions this morning," he said, the words brittle. "Yes, I should like to hear how you describe them in the presence of such distinguished witnesses." Mrs. Bennet made a small warning sound. "Edward," she began. "No, Mrs. Bennet," he said, not unkindly but very firmly. "I have been made a spectacle of. I have the right to ask why." Charlotte clasped her hands to keep them from shaking. "I am sorry," she said. "Truly, I did not intend to humiliate you. You left me waiting at the altar," he said. "You left our guests staring, our families whispering, the vicar shuffling his papers, the organist improvising hymn after hymn while everyone asked where you were. That is humiliation, Charlotte, intentional or not." "I know," she said softly, "and I am very sorry." "But not sorry enough to have chosen differently," Mrs. Harrow cut in. Charlotte turned to her. "I saw a woman lying in the road," she said, "unconscious, alone. I asked the coachman to stop. I could not leave her there." "You might have sent someone else," Mrs. Harrow said. "A servant, a boy. The town is full of people with nothing better to do." Charlotte's jaw tightened. "Everyone was on their way to the church," she said. "No one stopped. I did not think it right that everyone should assume someone else would care for her." "And so you abandoned your own marriage," Mrs. Harrow said coldly, "for a stranger who, it seems, has friends of her own to attend to her. How admirable. How very dramatic." "Mother," Edward said quietly, "allow her to speak." Mrs. Harrow drew herself up but subsided. Edward faced Charlotte again. "Was I so little to you," he asked, "that you could set me aside for the sake of a woman you had never seen before?" "You were not little to me," Charlotte said. "That is why this hurts. But our marriage would have been ill-founded if it required me to ignore someone in need in order to preserve your dignity." "Dignity," he repeated. "You think this is about dignity? This is about trust. I thought I knew you. I thought you were steady, sensible, aware of your duties. Instead, I discover on the most public day of our lives that your impulse is to act on a sudden feeling and throw all plans aside." He took a breath. "Perhaps we have both been mistaken," he said. "Perhaps you are not the woman I believed you to be, and I am not the husband you require." Charlotte's throat closed. "Edward," she whispered. He reached into his coat and drew out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed the ring that had been meant for her hand. "I came to return this," he said. "It is no longer appropriate that I keep it, nor that you wear it even in memory. Our engagement is at an end. My mother has drafted a notice to that effect to be carried discreetly to those who attended the non-ceremony." Mrs. Bennet's hand flew to her mouth. Emma made a sound as if she had been struck. Mr. Bennet closed his eyes briefly. Alexander watched, expression unreadable, one hand resting fingertips against the mantel. Charlotte looked at the ring. It glittered in the fading light. It represented stability, respectability, a future already sketched in detail. She did not reach for it. "I will not ask you to reconsider," she said. "That would be unfair. I have caused you pain and embarrassment. You have the right to release yourself." "So you admit that your behavior was shameful," Mrs. Harrow said. Charlotte turned to her. "I admit it was inconvenient," she said. "I admit it was costly. I do not accept that it was shameful." "You would choose to ruin your life for the sake of a stranger," Mrs. Harrow said with derision. "Perhaps you will think differently when gossip ensures that no respectable man will look at you twice." "Respectable men who value their good name more than another human's safety are not men I wish to marry," Charlotte replied, with a calm she did not feel. There was a brief, astonished silence. Edward's eyes searched her face. "In that case," he said quietly, snapping the ring box shut, "there is nothing more to be said between us." He bowed stiffly to Mr. and Mrs. Bennet. "I wish you no ill," he said, "but I cannot be connected to this scandal. Good day." He turned toward the door. "Mr. Harrow," Alexander said suddenly. Edward halted, startled. "Yes, Your Royal Highness?" he said, careful now. Alexander regarded him for a long moment. "I do not presume to interfere in private arrangements," he said, "but I feel obliged to say that Miss Bennet's actions this morning may have prevented a grave misfortune from becoming a tragedy. The woman she rescued is of high standing and great value to the Crown. Her loss would have been deeply felt. Whatever else you may think of Miss Bennet, remember that." Edward's jaw worked. "I am glad, sir, that the lady is of importance to you," he said. "Perhaps that will be some comfort to Miss Bennet when the importance of her own prospects diminishes." "That will do," Mr. Bennet said sharply. Edward inclined his head again, this time more to the prince than to anyone else, and left, his mother following, lips pressed tight. Through the open door, Charlotte could see a knot of neighbors in the lane, craning necks, pretending not to stare at the royal carriage while blatantly doing so. The door closed. For a moment, no one moved. Mrs. Bennet sank into a chair, her composure finally cracking. "It is done," she whispered. "It is really done." "Oh, Charlotte." Charlotte stood very straight in the middle of the room. "Yes," she said, "it is done." Emma came to her side and took her hand. "I am sorry you had to hear such things," Alexander said after a moment. "Yet I must confess, it was instructive." "Instructive," Charlotte repeated. "I have long been told," he said, "that the English middle class is a model of restraint and propriety. Today I have seen that it is also capable of extraordinary cruelty, expressed in very polite sentences." Despite herself, Charlotte gave a short, breathless laugh. It caught in her chest and turned into something like a sob. Emma tightened her grip on her hand. "Your Royal Highness," Mrs. Bennet said, dragging herself upright, "we are deeply ashamed that you have witnessed such unpleasantness under our roof." "You need not be ashamed of what others choose to say," he replied. "As for Miss Bennet, I have no doubt that time will show the worth of her decision." He looked at Charlotte again. "You did not ask me who Lady Agnes is beyond the simple title I gave you," he said. "Perhaps you should know that she has been working quietly to uncover certain irregularities in the administration of charitable funds connected to the Crown. She has made enemies among those who prefer their accounts not to be examined too closely." Charlotte frowned. "You mean someone might have wished her out of the way," she said slowly, "so that she could not reveal what she had learned." "It is a possibility we must consider," he said. "Her disappearance this morning, the vague circumstances of her journey beyond the palace grounds, the fact that she was found alone and injured, all this troubles me. And now you and your family are connected to it. The gossip that surrounds you is not only about a broken engagement. It may become about matters of the Crown." Mr. Bennet stiffened. "We are honest people, sir," he said. "We have nothing to do with the affairs of the court." "And yet," Alexander said, "you have sheltered someone who does. That is enough to draw unwelcome attention." One of his attendants, who had been standing discreetly near the door, stepped forward and murmured something in his ear. Alexander listened, his expression sharpening. "All ready?" he asked softly. The man nodded. "Yes, sir." Word has reached some in town that Lady Agnes is here. Questions are being asked. Lord Redford's name has been mentioned. Charlotte glanced from one to the other. Who is Lord Redford? She asked. A nobleman who has risen quickly in the last years, Alexander said. Too quickly, some think. He presents himself as a champion of charitable causes. Lady Agnes believed some of the money entrusted to his management was straying. Mrs. Bennet looked stricken. We do not want any part of a quarrel between lords, she said. We only wanted to help a woman in distress. I know, Alexander said. Unfortunately, good intentions do not shield one from all consequences. He stepped closer to Charlotte. Miss Bennet, he said, his voice quiet but firm, you are now a witness to the state in which Lady Agnes was found, and to the conduct of those around you when you chose to aid her. There are some who will wish to speak with you. There may be others who would prefer you to remain silent. A chill traced Charlotte's spine. Silent, she repeated. Through intimidation, persuasion, or other means, he said. I will not frighten you with details that may never come to pass, but I cannot ignore the risk. Mr. Bennet squared his shoulders. What are you suggesting, sir? He asked. Alexander looked at him, then at Charlotte, then at the faces of Emma and Mrs. Bennet. I am suggesting, he said slowly, that for your daughter's protection and for the sake of understanding what has happened to Lady Agnes and why, it may be necessary for Miss Bennet to accompany us to the palace for a time, where her safety can be ensured and her testimony properly heard. He paused, then added with all the weight of his station behind the words, For your own safety, and for the sake of the truth, Miss Bennet, I must ask that you come to the palace with me. For a few moments no one answered. Mrs. Bennet stared at the prince as if he had suggested they all move to the moon. Emma's hand tightened around Charlotte's. Mr. Bennet's brows drew together in a deep line. To the palace, Mrs. Bennet repeated faintly. Our Charlotte. Alexander inclined his head. I would not make such a request lightly, he said. But Lady Agnes's disappearance, the circumstances in which your daughter found her, and the fact that certain names are already being whispered together, make this matter delicate. Names like Lord Redford, Mr. Bennet said quietly. Yes, Alexander answered. He turned to Charlotte. I will not force you, he added. You are not under arrest, nor accused of any wrongdoing. You are, however, an important witness, and as such you should be where those investigating this affair can speak with you easily, and where anyone who might wish to influence you improperly will find it more difficult to reach you. Charlotte tried to gather her thoughts. You believe someone may try to frighten me, she said. I believe it is possible, he replied. If Lady Agnes is correct in her suspicions, then there are individuals who would prefer certain truths remain hidden. They may consider you a complication. Mrs. Bennet made a soft, desperate sound. She is a young woman, she said. She has never been further than the next town. She is not made for intrigues and plots. Neither was Lady Agnes once, Alexander said gently. Yet she found herself at the center of them because she would not pretend not to see what was in front of her. He looked at Charlotte again. Miss Bennet, he said, you have already demonstrated that you are willing to accept personal loss rather than ignore what is right. I do not wish you to suffer further. That is precisely why I ask you to come under my protection. Mr. Bennet cleared his throat. If she goes with you, he said, what will happen to her? Will she be questioned? Paraded before all manner of important people? Left to wander some endless corridor with no one to guide her? Alexander's mouth quirked. I will try to ensure she is not left wandering aimlessly, he said. She will be lodged near Lady Agnes, asked to give her account in private to a small number of trusted officials, and otherwise allowed as quiet a stay as the palace can provide. I cannot promise there will be no uncomfortable moments, but I can promise she will not be alone in them. Charlotte felt the weight of everyone's gaze settle on her. Her parents, torn between fear and pride. Emma, scared but expectant. The prince steady, waiting, his eyes clear. What would you have me do, Papa? She asked softly. Mr. Bennet looked at her for a long time. If I say no, he said, I keep you here where I can see you. I shield you from a world I do not understand, but I may also paint a target on this house, because those who want to silence you will know exactly where you are, with only our thin walls between you and them. He shook his head. If I say yes, he went on, I send you into that very world, but I send you with the prince at your side. That seems on balance the wiser foolishness. Charlotte's throat tightened. "You think it foolish?" she asked. "I think it terrifying," he said. "But that is not the same thing." He took her hands. "Go if you feel you must," he said. "Tell the truth, as you have already done. Be cautious. Listen more than you speak. And remember that no matter how grand the rooms, the people in them are still only people." Mrs. Bennet dabbed at her eyes. "I do not like it," she said, "but I see no better way. Only promise you will come back to us, Charlotte. Do not let them keep you there forever, turned into something we cannot recognize." Charlotte embraced her. "I could not be turned into anything that does not begin here," she said. "You have made me, Mama, for better or worse." Emma flung her arms around them both. "I wish I could come too," she said. "I want to see the palace and all its secrets." "You would ask too many questions and be thrown out within the day," Mrs. Bennet said wetly. Alexander, who had tactfully withdrawn a pace, stepped forward again. "We will take every care of Miss Bennet," he said. "If you wish, I can arrange for letters to be carried between you and her with some regularity. Lady Agnes's maid is trustworthy and travels often between town and palace." "That would ease our minds," Mr. Bennet said gratefully. "Then it shall be done," Alexander replied, "if Miss Bennet consents." Charlotte straightened. "I will go," she said, "if you truly believe it necessary." "I do," he said, "and I am grateful." There was no time for elaborate preparation. A small bag was hastily packed with a few gowns, underthings, a shawl. Emma slipped a worn, much-read book into it when Mrs. Bennet was not looking. "For when the grand people bore you," she whispered. In the doorway, as Charlotte put on her cloak, Thomas appeared, hair disordered, eyes wide. "Are you really going to live with the king?" he blurted. "Not with him," Charlotte said with a smile. "Near him, perhaps. I shall tell you what his stables look like." "That is all I care about," Thomas said. "Well, and whether princes wear their crowns, even when they eat." "I shall investigate," she promised. At last, there was nothing left to delay her. Alexander escorted her to the waiting carriage. Neighbors watched openly now, some with curiosity, some with thin-lipped disapproval, a few with something like admiration. As the carriage door closed, Charlotte caught one last glimpse of her parents standing in the lane, small and brave, watching their eldest daughter be carried into a story none of them had chosen. The journey to London took several hours, made shorter by the unexpected ease of conversation. For the first few miles, Charlotte and Alexander sat in polite silence, each apparently absorbed in the passing countryside. The cushions were softer than any Charlotte had known. The motion of the carriage was smooth, but her thoughts jolted and lurched. At last, Alexander spoke. "Have you ever been to London, Miss Bennet?" he asked. "Once," she said, "when I was 12. My aunt brought me to see an exhibition of paintings. I remember the noise more than anything, and the smell of coal. It has not grown any quieter," he said. "We will arrive by a private gate on the riverside, so you will be spared the worst of it." "You speak as if you dislike it," she observed. "I respect it," he replied. "It is the heart of the kingdom. One does not dislike one's own heart, but one may find it tiring." "Tiring to be always surrounded by people?" she asked. "Tiring to be always observed," he said. "To have every word weighed, every gesture noted. You will experience a little of that in the days ahead." "I am sorry." She shrugged slightly. "People have been observing me since this morning," she said. "Perhaps I shall be accustomed to it by the time we arrive." He looked at her, the corner of his mouth lifting. "You have endured more in one day than many endure in a year," he said. "How are you, truly?" She considered. "I feel as if I have stepped off a path I have walked my whole life," she said. "The ground is unfamiliar. I am trying not to stumble." "If it is any comfort," he said, "everyone at the palace is stumbling all the time. Some simply disguise it better." She laughed. "I had not imagined princes would confess to stumbling," she said. "Princes are only men in finer coats," he replied. "We are as capable of foolishness as anyone. Perhaps more so because fewer people dare tell us when we are making fools of ourselves." "Lady Agnes seems to tell you," Charlotte said. "Lady Agnes does not recognize the concept of rank when she believes someone is being an idiot," Alexander said. "That is one of the many reasons we need her." "She must be very brave," Charlotte said. "So must you be, to speak with me so freely after the day you have had," he answered. She flushed. "I am sorry," she said. "I forget myself. My mother would scold me for speaking so plainly. Your mother is not in this carriage, he said, and I am grateful for your plainness. The palace has enough men who speak in circles. By the time the carriage rolled through the private gate and into the inner court, Charlotte's fear had softened into a tense curiosity. The palace loomed above them, its windows glowing. Servants moved about with quiet purpose. The scale of it all made her feel as if she had shrunk. Alexander stepped out first, then offered his hand to help her down. She placed her gloved fingers in his and tried not to stumble on the stone. "Welcome to Whitehall, Miss Bennet," he said. "We will try not to swallow you whole." Inside, everything seemed made of stone, wood, and silence. A steward in dark livery bowed deeply to Alexander and gave Charlotte a curious, measuring glance. "This is Miss Charlotte Bennet," Alexander said. "She will be lodged near Lady Agnes Fairley and treated as a guest of the crown. Please see that she has what she requires." "Yes, Your Royal Highness," the steward said. He turned to Charlotte with a more formal bow. "If you will follow me, miss." Charlotte looked back at Alexander. "I will come to see Lady Agnes shortly," he said. "Rest if you can. Someone will fetch you when we are ready to speak." She nodded and followed the steward. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever, lined with doors, portraits, and an occasional cluster of women in fine gowns who paused in their conversation to watch her pass. "Who is that?" one murmured, not quite quietly enough. "The bride who ran away," another whispered back. "I heard she is in disgrace." "Then why is she in the prince's company?" a third asked. "Perhaps she is not as much in disgrace as we think," the second replied. Charlotte pretended not to hear. Her cheeks burned. The steward at last stopped before a modest door in one of the side wings. "This will be your room, miss," he said. "Lady Agnes's chamber is just along the corridor, 3 doors down. Her maid, Mrs. White, will look in on you. If you have any need, pull that bell cord there." The room was small compared to the great halls, but larger than Charlotte's room at home. A narrow bed stood against one wall, a washstand against another, a chair by the window. "This is very comfortable," she said. "We are glad it pleases you," the steward replied. "The prince was specific that you should be near Lady Agnes." That thought warmed her more than the fire laid, but not yet lit in the grate. Left alone, she set down her bag and sat on the edge of the bed. For a moment, exhaustion descended like a heavy cloak. She let herself fall back onto the coverlet and closed her eyes. A knock came at the door almost immediately. She sat up. "Come in," she called. A brisk woman in middle years entered, dressed in a plain gown and apron, her hair covered with a cap. "Miss Bennet?" she asked. "Yes, I am Mrs. White, Lady Agnes's maid," the woman said. "I am to see that you have what you need. The prince told me of your assistance to my lady. We are all obliged." "How is she?" Charlotte asked quickly. "Sleeping," Mrs. White said. "She has done nothing else all day, which is as it should be. The physician says she may be ready to speak at greater length tomorrow. For tonight we are to keep her quiet." "I am glad," Charlotte said. "If there is anything I can do—" "You have done plenty," Mrs. White interrupted kindly. "Let us worry for her tonight. You should rest. I have had a tray sent up to you. You must eat something." Charlotte realized suddenly that she had not eaten since a hurried bite of bread hours before the ill-fated wedding. "Thank you," she said. "Mrs." White set a tray on the small table, then paused. "One more thing," she said. "You will hear talk. Servants, ladies, lords. They will all have their version of what has happened. Take none of it too much to heart. The palace runs on gossip as much as on coal." "I have discovered that already," Charlotte said. "Then you are ahead of many," Mrs. White replied. "Good night, miss." When the door closed, Charlotte sat alone with the ticking of an unseen clock and the murmur of distant voices. She forced down a few bites of food, more from obedience than appetite, then rose and splashed water on her face. A short time later, another knock came, gentler this time. It was the steward again. His Royal Highness and Sir Henry Markham, the King's legal advisor, would be grateful for a few minutes of your time, miss, he said. Charlotte smoothed her hair, straightened her gown, and followed him. They led her to a smaller library, lined with books and warmed by a crackling fire. Alexander stood by the hearth, speaking quietly with a grey-haired man in spectacles. "Miss Bennet," Alexander said as she entered, "allow me to introduce Sir Henry Markham. He is assisting Lady Agnes in examining certain troubling matters. Sir Henry bowed. "Miss Bennet," he said, "we are very grateful that you agreed to come." "I am not sure how much help I can be," she said. "I know very little." "You know what you saw," Sir Henry replied. "That is all we require. Please sit." She took a chair near the fire. Alexander sat opposite her. Sir Henry settled at a small writing desk, pen poised. "Begin at the beginning," Sir Henry said. "Tell us everything from the moment you entered the carriage this morning until the moment the prince knocked at your door." She did. Her own words sounded strange to her ears, as if she were reciting a story about someone else. She described the decorated carriage, the bells, the woman in the road, the crowd's reluctance to help, the farm cart, the doctor's visit, Edward's anger, Alexander's arrival. "Did you see any other carriage near the place where Lady Agnes lay?" Sir Henry asked. "No," she said, "only ours, and people walking to church." "Were there any marks on the road? Ruts, hoofprints?" he pressed. "There are always marks," she said. "It is a busy road. But I did not see a carriage waiting nearby, if that is what you mean. She seemed to have been left there." Sir Henry nodded, making notes. "Thank you," he said. "It confirms much of what we suspected." Alexander leaned forward. "Lady Agnes mentioned a carriage at the palace gate and a voice encouraging her to take the air," he said. "Does anything in your description contradict that?" "I do not think so," Charlotte said. "If she was brought out of the city by carriage and then left on the road, I would not have seen the vehicle, only the result." "Precisely," Sir Henry said. "It is a cleaner arrangement than anything overt. If she had not been found quickly, her death could have been attributed to mischance, a fall her age." Charlotte shivered. "But she was found," she said, "and she will live." "Yes," Alexander said, "and that is not good news for whoever arranged her disappearance." Sir Henry cleared his throat. "We must consider how Lord Redford will respond when he learns that Lady Agnes has not vanished as thoroughly as he hoped," he said. "He is too subtle to act rashly, but he may attempt to discredit any who speak against him. That includes Lady Agnes, and now you." Charlotte clenched her hands in her lap. "I do not even know the man," she said. "What harm can I do him?" "You can confirm that Lady Agnes was found injured and alone, far from where she should have been," Sir Henry replied. "You can confirm that you have no connection to her or to the palace, that you had no motive to fabricate such a tale. Your very ordinariness will strengthen her credibility." "Ordinariness," she repeated with a faint smile. "I have never been so grateful to be dull." Alexander's gaze softened. "I would not call you dull," he said quietly. She looked down. "Nevertheless," Sir Henry continued briskly, "Lord Redford will not enjoy the prospect of a stubborn old lady and a principled young woman pulling at the threads of his carefully woven reputation. He is skilled at shaping opinion. He will set his own stories circulating." "Stories about me," Charlotte said. "Yes," Sir Henry said. "Questions about your motives, your character, your sudden appearance in relation to a royal matter. He may suggest that you are ambitious, that you sought to ingratiate yourself with the prince, that your broken engagement is evidence of unstable temperament." Charlotte's cheeks burned. "How could anyone believe such things?" she asked. "People believe what flatters their prejudices," Alexander said. "Many at court prefer to think that corruption is impossible among those of their rank. They will seize any explanation that allows them to keep that illusion." "You will not be alone in facing it," Sir Henry added. "Lady Agnes has faced such storms before. She will advise you." "If you wish to withdraw from all this," Alexander said suddenly, "say so. Now, before your name is attached publicly. We can send you home tomorrow with a simple letter of thanks and an assurance that you owe nothing further." Charlotte looked at him. The idea of returning to her quiet lane, to her parents' anxious but loving faces, tempted her. She could pretend this was all a strange dream. Let others untangle the knots. But she saw again the woman lying in the road, the way people had stepped around her. She remembered the note of fear in Lady Agnes's voice when she spoke of the carriage and the dizzying air beyond the gates. "I have already stepped into this," she said slowly. "I cannot pretend I have not. If my testimony can help protect Lady Agnes or reveal the truth, I should not run from it." Alexander held her gaze. "Very well," he said. "We will stand together then." Sir Henry nodded once, as if satisfied. "Brave girl," he murmured. "Very well. That is all for tonight. Miss Bennet, you should rest." Tomorrow will be longer. She rose, bowed slightly, and left with the steward. In the days that followed, Charlotte began to understand what Mrs. White had meant about the palace running on gossip. Word spread quickly that a provincial girl had been brought in under the prince's protection. Servants speculated in corridors. Some imagined scandal, others romance. A few suspected complicated politics. The nobility took up the whispers and polished them into more pointed remarks. At meals, Charlotte felt eyes resting on her longer than politeness required. Some ladies offered cool nods without smiles. Others smiled too much, asking meaningless questions in order to inspect her more closely. "So you were to be married when you found Lady Agnes," one said lightly over tea. "How thrilling. Such drama. Do you regret choosing the old lady over the young gentleman?" "I did not choose her over him," Charlotte answered. "I chose not to step over a person in need. If he could not accept that, then the choice was not as I thought." "Oh," the lady said, arching brows. "Very principled. How exhausting that must be." Another day, Charlotte passed a group of younger women in the long gallery. Their voices lowered as she approached. "I heard she ran away because she wanted a bigger prize," one whispered. "The prince, you mean?" another said with a giggle. "Imagine, from a country solicitor to the heir to the throne. That is what I call ambition." "She denies it, of course," the first replied. "They always do." Charlotte walked by as if she were deaf. Inside, shame and anger tangled. Alexander seemed to sense when the murmurs had bitten more deeply than she could hide. On those days, he made a point of speaking with her in hallways, asking gently about her family, her impressions of the palace, her thoughts on matters entirely unrelated to the scandal. "Do you miss your home very much?" he asked one afternoon, as they walked slowly in a small sheltered garden behind the palace. "Yes," she said, "and no. I miss what it was before, but if I returned now, it would not be the same. People would stop talking when I passed." "They do that here as well," he observed. "Yes, but here I expect it," she said. "There it would hurt more." He nodded. "I am sorry that your choice has cost you both your old life and a peaceful stay here," he said. "It has also given me friends I did not expect," she replied. "Lady Agnes, Mrs. White, Sir Henry, when he remembers not to speak in legal phrases. And you," he glanced at her, something quietly bright in his eyes. "I am honored to be counted among them," he said. The more time they spent together, the more easily they spoke. She saw beyond his formal bearing to a man who was often weary, sometimes wry, and capable of unexpected warmth. He saw beyond her initial shyness to a mind that asked direct questions and a heart that refused easy platitudes. Not everyone approved of this growing closeness. One evening, as Charlotte passed a partially open door, she overheard two gentlemen in conversation. "You are too lenient with her," one said. "The girl already has half the palace in her corner. If you are seen with her much more, tongues will wag in earnest." Alexander's voice answered, calm but firm. "They are wagging already, Lord Redford. I see no reason to adjust my steps to their rhythm." Charlotte froze at the name. "You must be cautious," Lord Redford replied smoothly. "The appearance of partiality can be dangerous, particularly when it involves someone connected to a lady who has, shall we say, expressed doubts about my affairs." "She has expressed doubts about more than your affairs," Alexander said. "She has expressed doubts about your character." Redford laughed softly. "Old women are prone to suspicions," he said, "and young women are prone to hero worship. You have always favored causes that appeal to the heart, Highness. Do not let that blind you to the possibility that Lady Agnes has been misled, or that this Miss Bennet enjoys her sudden elevation more than she admits." Charlotte moved away before she could hear more. Her pulse pounded. Later that night, as she sat at the small desk in her room trying to write a letter home that would not alarm her parents, she heard a faint scuffling outside her door. There was no knock. Instead, a thin slip of paper slid under the threshold and came to rest by her foot. She stared at it for a moment, then picked it up. The paper was good quality, the handwriting elegant yet unfamiliar. "For your own sake," it read, "return to the life you left. You are being used in a game you do not understand. The prince will not be able to protect you when this matter comes fully to light. No signature, no address." Her hands trembled slightly as she read it again. Her first instinct was to dismiss it as a crude attempt to frighten her. Yet the steady script and the choice of words did not feel crude. They felt calculated. Was it a threat, a warning, a kindness? She did not know. She was still standing in the middle of the room, the note open in her hand, when a soft knock sounded at her door. Charlotte's fingers tightened around the folded paper. The knock came again, gentle but steady. "Miss Bennet?" Alexander's voice carried through the door, low and careful. "May I speak with you?" Her heart, which had been racing from the note, gave an entirely different sort of leap. "One moment, sir," she called. She glanced around the small room as if it held answers. It did not. Only the narrow bed, the small desk, the candle burning low. She slipped the note into her palm, opened the door, and stepped back. Alexander stood alone in the corridor, coat unbuttoned, hair slightly disordered, as if he had run a hand through it several times. The stiffness of the day's formalities had left his shoulders. He looked less like a prince and more like a tired man. "Forgive the hour," he said. "I asked the steward if you were still awake. He assured me that palace corridors are never entirely still, and that you, in particular, had just asked for more paper." "I was writing to my parents," Charlotte said. "They will worry." "I hope you told them some truth," he replied. "Though perhaps not all." "If I told them all, my mother would arrive at the palace gates tomorrow with a broom to sweep me home," Charlotte said. He smiled briefly, then his gaze sharpened. "Something has happened," he said. "You look as if you have seen a ghost." She hesitated, then opened her hand and held out the folded paper. "This was pushed under my door," she said. He took it, read it once, then again, more slowly. The warmth left his face. His jaw hardened. "Did you see who left it?" he asked. "No," she said. "I heard a sound, then the knock. The note was already on the floor." He studied the handwriting, then gave the paper back to her. "This is not a servant's hand," he said. "Nor is it clumsy enough to be a crude attempt to frighten you. It is practiced. Someone with education and access to this corridor." "Do you think it is a threat?" she asked. "It is a warning," he said. "Whether kindly meant or not, I cannot yet say." "You are being used," she read aloud, voice unsteady. "The prince will not be able to protect you. Are they right? Am I being used?" He did not answer immediately. Instead, he stepped past her into the room and closed the door behind him with quiet care. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the chair. "Of course," she said. He sat. She remained standing, unsure what to do with her hands. "You are being asked to tell the truth," he said. "If that is being used, then yes, you are. So am I. So is Lady Agnes. So is Sir Henry. Each of us is a piece in this game, as the note calls it. The question is not whether we are used, but to what end." "To protect the crown," she said quietly. "To protect the people the crown is meant to serve," he corrected. "The crown is only a symbol. If it excuses dishonesty, it is not worth defending." She sank onto the edge of the bed. "And the other part?" she asked. "That you will not be able to protect me." He looked at her directly. "I am not omnipotent," he said. "I cannot silence every whisper or control every malicious tongue. I cannot promise that you will never feel fear while you are involved in this. But I can promise that I will not abandon you. Not in this matter. Not while I have breath." She swallowed, the tightness in her chest easing a little. "Thank you," she said. "May I keep this?" he asked, nodding toward the note. "You think it will help?" she asked. "It tells us that someone is worried enough about your involvement to try to separate you from us," he said. "That worries me. But it also confirms that we are rattling the right cage." He folded the note carefully and slipped it into his coat. "We have been waiting for Lady Agnes to regain enough strength to speak formally," he went on. "Dr. Avery believes she will be ready tomorrow. Sir Henry has arranged a private hearing. Only a few will attend. Myself, Sir Henry, a representative of my father, Lord Redford, as he is implicated, and you, if you are willing." "I am willing," she said at once, then hesitated. "Will it be very frightening?" "It will be serious," he replied. "But Lady Agnes will not allow it to become theatrical, nor will I." He studied her face. "I came tonight to ask once more if you wish to withdraw," he said. "This note makes me more certain that you should not. Which is unkind, I know, but necessary." "I understand," she said. "If I ran now, I would think of that woman in the road every time I closed my eyes. I cannot bear that." He nodded. "You are braver than you feel," he said. "That is the best kind of bravery." He rose as if to leave, then paused. "One more thing," he said. Whatever happens tomorrow, some will try to make you doubt yourself. They will question your memory, your motives, even your intelligence. Listen to their questions, but do not let their tone burrow into you. You know what you saw. That is enough. I will remember, she said. He moved to the door, then glanced back. Try to sleep, he said. If you cannot, do not blame yourself. The palace has kept better sleepers awake than you. When he had gone, the room felt both emptier and somehow steadier. Charlotte lay down fully clothed, staring at the shadowed ceiling. Sleep did not come, but eventually the pounding of her heart slowed. When dawn pried open the sky, she rose, dressed, and braced herself for what the day would bring. The hearing took place in a small panelled chamber, not one of the great halls. That made it feel both more intimate and more dangerous, as if truth would have fewer places to hide. Lady Agnes sat in a high-backed chair, frailer than the last time Charlotte had seen her, but with a keen light in her eyes. Sir Henry sat at a table with papers and ledgers stacked neatly before him. Alexander occupied a plain chair beside Lady Agnes. No throne, no extra ornament. Opposite them, Lord Redford lounged with studied ease. He was in his middle years, with an agreeable face and a manner cultivated to put others at ease. It made Charlotte dislike him at once. A clerk from the King's office sat quietly at another table, pen ready to record. Charlotte hovered near the door until Alexander beckoned her forward. "Miss Bennet," he said, "thank you for joining us. Please, sit here." He indicated a chair slightly behind Lady Agnes, close enough for her to be heard, but not in the direct line of fire. Redford's gaze slid over her, polite, dismissive. "So this is the famous young lady," he said pleasantly. "The one who abandoned her wedding to rescue an old woman. A very picturesque story." Charlotte felt her cheeks warm, but she kept her voice steady. "It is not a story," she said. "It is something that happened." "Everything that happens becomes a story," Redford replied. "The question is who tells it." "We are here for facts, not tales," Sir Henry said curtly. "Lord Redford, we will begin with Lady Agnes, if you please." Redford spread his hands. "By all means," he said. "I am as anxious as anyone to clear up this unfortunate misunderstanding." Lady Agnes inclined her head slightly. "Unfortunate," she repeated. "That is one word for it." Sir Henry nodded to her. "Lady Agnes," he said, "can you tell us why you were walking alone near the palace gate yesterday morning?" "I was troubled," she said. "I had been going over certain accounts, charitable funds, as you know. Money given by generous souls who believe their gifts will reach the poor. I found discrepancies." "What kind of discrepancies?" Sir Henry asked. "Amounts that had been allocated on paper, but did not appear in the records of the charities," she replied. "Sums that vanished between the Crown's hand and the hands of the needy. When I traced the path of the money, it consistently passed through organizations under the patronage of Lord Redford." Redford smiled faintly. "As do many funds," he said. "I have thrown myself into charitable work, as you know. When one is visible, one becomes a conduit. Mistakes happen. It is complex." "Indeed it is," Lady Agnes said. "Which is why I did not come to you in public. I sent you a memorandum, privately. I asked for an explanation. I received a reply." She reached into her reticule. Mrs. White nearby drew out a folded sheet of paper and passed it to Sir Henry. He adjusted his spectacles and read, "My dear Lady Agnes," he read aloud, "you have ever been a woman of conscience. I admire your zeal. I fear, however, that advancing age has made you over-suspicious. I assure you that all funds are handled properly. You have earned your rest. Leave these vexing details to younger shoulders. Perhaps a retreat to the countryside would soothe your mind." "Kindly meant," Redford interjected. "I heard she had been unwell. I wished to spare her strain." "I have been many things in my life," Lady Agnes said. "Unpleasant, sharp-tongued, obstinate, but I have never been senile. That letter told me not to look where I was already looking. That made me certain I was facing the right direction." Alexander's voice cut in, quiet but edged. "Continue," he said. "I did not retreat to the countryside," Lady Agnes went on. "Instead, I examined more accounts, the pattern repeated. I knew I had to speak to His Majesty, or at least to you, Highness. I left my rooms early, before the palace was fully awake, to walk in the gardens and order my thoughts. That is when a carriage approached near the gate, not the main gate, a smaller one, where deliveries come." She closed her eyes briefly, remembering. "The coachman tipped his hat," she said. The gentleman inside called my name. I recognized him. Lord Redford. All eyes turned to him. He maintained his relaxed posture. I pass that gate often, he said lightly. Our stables are not far. I am fond of horses, and of morning air. He invited me to ride with him, Lady Agnes said. He said we should talk somewhere quiet, away from curious ears. He urged me to take the air beyond the walls, as your note says, Sir Henry. I hesitated. I knew better, but I have known him for many years. I stepped into the carriage. Her hands tightened on the arms of her chair. We drove for some time, she continued, long enough for the city to thin and the houses to grow sparser. Lord Redford made pleasant conversation. He spoke of his admiration for my dedication. Then he suggested that I retire gently, of course. He said there was no need for an old woman to burden herself with figures. He said I should entrust all that to him. And you refused, Sir Henry said. Of course I refused, she snapped. I told him I would be speaking with the king. He smiled, not kindly. There was a draught. I felt light-headed. I recall the door opening. Hands, the edge of the road. Then nothing, until I woke to Miss Bennet's face. Redford clapped his hands once softly. A gripping tale, he said, but one with gaps. She admits to feeling dizzy. At her age, fainting is hardly unusual. A fall from a carriage could explain her injuries. Why assume malice when mischance is so common? Why indeed, Sir Henry said dryly. Let us see, Miss Bennet. Charlotte sat straighter. Yes, sir. You have already told us in private, Sir Henry said, but for the record, please describe the scene when you found Lady Agnes. Charlotte told it again. The woman in the ditch, the passing crowd, the lack of any carriage nearby. The doctor's assessment that the injuries were not as severe as might be expected from a full fall. Did Lady Agnes seem bruised as if from tumbling from a moving vehicle? Sir Henry asked. No, Charlotte said. There was a bump on her head, but the doctor said it might be from striking the ground while already partly supported. You see, Redford said smoothly. Even this suggests an accident, a half fall, a stumble at the roadside. Lady Agnes is valiant, but she is not as sure-footed as she once was. Perhaps, Sir Henry said. Or perhaps someone eased her from a stopped carriage, left her where she would be less quickly found, and trusted her age and frailty to do the rest. He opened one of the ledgers on the table. Let us leave conjecture aside a moment, he said. These are the accounts Lady Agnes examined, cross-checked with the records of the charities. Each time funds passed through an organization chaired, sponsored, or otherwise managed by you, Lord Redford. Each time the amount reaching the intended recipients is smaller than what left the treasury. Redford waved a hand. Fees, he said, administrative costs. Anyone who has ever run a charity knows. Your administrative costs, Sir Henry interrupted, would make a merchant prince blush. Particularly interesting is this sequence, a sum allocated to repair 10 cottages after flood. Only 6 are repaired. The remaining money goes, according to your own books, to a special fund with no clear destination. Redford's eyes cooled. All this could have been discussed quietly, he said. Instead, we sit here as if in a court, with a girl from the provinces as your star witness. I begin to see the prince's strategy. It is clever, appeal to sentiment, use Lady Agnes's reputation and Miss Bennet's apparent innocence to paint me as a villain. I applaud the artistry, if not the fairness. Alexander's voice cut through the air. I have no need of artistry, he said. If you can account for the missing funds, do so. If you can explain why you chose to remove Lady Agnes from the palace rather than address her concerns in front of others, do so. If not, do not insult us by pretending this is a misunderstanding based on fainting fits and over-suspicious old age. For the first time, Redford's pleasant mask slipped a fraction. You entertain dangerous ideas, Highness, he said. If you begin to believe that every grumble from those beneath you signifies corruption, you will drown in accusations. The nobility will not thank a prince who treats them as suspects. The nobility will have to grow used to it, Alexander said coolly. Trust is not a birthright, it is earned. A silence fell, the clerk's pen scratched. At last, the representative from the king's office, who had so far said nothing, cleared his throat. Lord Redford, he said, His Majesty has followed these developments with concern. He has authorized me to say that, pending a more exhaustive review of the accounts, you are to relinquish all management of charitable funds and resign from your positions on the boards in question. You will retire to your estate in the country until further notice." Redford's lips thinned. "You would exile me on the word of an old woman and a girl?" he asked softly. "On the basis of the ledger, the memorandum you sent, your own admission that you invited Lady Agnes into your carriage, and the testimony of a witness with no stake in the matter beyond her conscience," the King's man replied. "We are not imprisoning you, Lord Redford. We are simply removing you from a sphere where temptation has proven too strong." Redford looked at Charlotte then, directly for the first time. His gaze was sharp, measuring. "You have done well for yourself," he said. "A week ago you were a forgotten country bride. Now you sit in judgment over men who have run this kingdom's affairs for years. Enjoy it while you can." Charlotte's hands trembled, but she kept her voice even. "I sit here only because I refuse to step over someone lying in the road," she said. "If that unsettles you, perhaps you should examine why." Redford's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled. A thin, humorless thing. "I see you have learned to speak like them already," he said. "Be careful, Miss Bennet. The palace devours its darlings." He rose, bowed with exaggerated politeness to the King's representative, nodded to Lady Agnes, and left the room. When the door closed behind him, the air seemed to ease. Lady Agnes exhaled long and slow. "Well," she said, "that could have gone worse." "You were remarkable," Charlotte said. "So were you," Lady Agnes replied. "He aimed his sharpest barbs at you. You did not flinch. I felt as if my knees might fail at any moment," Charlotte admitted. "That is what chairs are for," Lady Agnes said dryly. Sir Henry gathered his papers with a satisfied air. "It will take months to untangle all of this," he said. "Years, perhaps, to rebuild trust. But the worst rot has been exposed. That is more than I had hoped for when you first came to me, Lady Agnes. We will have to bear the murmurs about being ungrateful to those who have served us so well," Alexander said. "The poor have borne worse," Lady Agnes replied. "They will not weep for Lord Redford's wounded pride." The King's representative rose. "His Majesty thanks you all," he said. "He will make a quiet announcement about Lord Redford's retirement. There will be no public scandal, but among those who matter the message will be clear." He bowed and left. Slowly, the room emptied until only Charlotte, Alexander, and Lady Agnes remained. Charlotte suddenly felt very small. "Is it over?" she asked. "Part of it," Alexander said. "Lord Redford is removed from his position. The funds can be examined without interference, but the whispers about you will not vanish overnight." Lady Agnes beckoned Charlotte closer. "Come here, child," she said. "Let me see you properly." Charlotte approached. Lady Agnes took her hand. "You have lost much in these days," she said. "A fiancé, a reputation in your town, the illusion that the world is simple. You may yet lose more, but you have gained clarity, and you have given something precious to me." "What?" Charlotte asked, bewildered. "Time," Lady Agnes said. "If you had not stopped, I might have died in that ditch, and all of this would have remained hidden a while longer. You have given years of honest charity to people who will never know your name. That is no small gift." Charlotte blinked back sudden tears. "I only did what anyone should have done," she whispered. Lady Agnes squeezed her hand. "Then let us pray more people begin to be like anyone," she said. "Now go. You look as if you might fall over. The prince will see you to your room. I intend to sleep for a week." She leaned back in her chair, eyes closing. Alexander gestured toward the door. Charlotte followed him into the corridor. For a time they walked in silence. The palace seemed quieter, as if it too were catching its breath. At last, Alexander spoke. "How do you feel?" he asked. "As if I have been turned inside out and left in the wind," she said. "Relieved, frightened, tired, all at once." "You were remarkable," he said. "I was terrified," she replied. "Being remarkable while terrified is the definition of courage," he said. They reached her door. She expected him to leave her there, but he hesitated. "May I come in for a moment?" he asked. "There is something I must say while I still have the nerve." Her heart thudded. "Yes," she said quietly. "Of course." They entered the small room. She closed the door behind them, suddenly very aware how close they were in the modest space. Alexander did not sit. He stood by the window, looking out at the pale square of sky, then turned to face her. "From the first moment I heard of you," he said, "you have been an interruption." "An interruption," she repeated, unsure whether to be offended. A necessary one, he added. I had grown accustomed to a certain pattern. Courtiers who tell me what they think I wish to hear. Nobles who assure me that all is well, that the system works, that the poor are simply unfortunate, not neglected. Even my own sense of duty had settled into comfortable grooves. He stepped closer, not looming but reaching for connection. Then I learned that a young woman had left her own wedding on a matter of conscience, he said. That you had accepted the loss of an advantageous match rather than step over a stranger. That you had weathered scorn, gossip, and the collapse of a future carefully arranged for you, all because you could not bear to ignore what was right in front of you. Charlotte swallowed, saying nothing. I cannot express to you, he went on, how rare that is in the circles in which I move. Compassion is praised in the abstract. In practice, it is often sacrificed to convenience. You refuse to make that sacrifice. And then, when you were dragged into this palace, you did not cling to the first excuse offered to escape. You stayed. You spoke. You faced down a man who has intimidated seasoned politicians for years. His voice softened. You have changed the way I see my own duties, he said. You have changed the way I see courage, and though I did not expect it, you have changed the way I see my future. She felt as if the floor had dropped away. Your future, she repeated. Before you, he said, there was a plan. A suitable bride from a suitable family. A marriage that would please the nobility, calm the government, and allow me to fulfill expectations. I do not say it would have been miserable. Perhaps we would have reached a certain respectful affection. He shook his head slightly. But now, he said, I know that I could not stand beside someone who would have stayed in that carriage. I could not share my life with someone who values appearance over truth. He took a breath. Charlotte, he said, using her given name deliberately, I find that I care for you. Deeply. Not as a symbol, not as an idea, but as the woman who sat by an old lady's bed, who comforted her sister through tears, who laughed at my clumsiest attempts at humor, who has looked me in the eye when others lower theirs. Her hands trembled. Highness, she began. He lifted a hand, not to silence her, but to steady his own nerves. I will not put you in a position where you feel you must answer out of gratitude, he said. You have already given more than enough to my family and this palace. You owe us nothing, least of all your heart. I must say this carefully. He looked directly into her eyes. I love you, he said simply. I do not say it lightly. I have watched you, spoken with you, seen you at your lowest and at your bravest. I admire you more than I can say. And if you are willing, I would like to spend my life with you. Not as a prize, not as a rescue, but as a partner. Silence pressed in, heavy and gentle. Charlotte felt the words settle over her, into her, stirring things she had barely dared name. You have known me only a short time, she said at last, her voice very quiet. A few weeks, a handful of conversations, a scandal and a hearing. How can you be certain? I am not certain of your every habit, he said. I do not know whether you prefer tea or coffee, whether you rise early or late, whether you hum while you sew. Those things can be learned. I am certain of your character, and that is what matters most in a life lived in public and under pressure. He took another careful step toward her. But I must ask you, he said, what do you feel? You have been through so much. Any feeling you have toward me may be entangled with gratitude or with the awe of finding yourself in these halls. If that is all it is, say so. I will step back. I will ensure your family's comfort. I will remain your friend and nothing more. She drew a shaky breath. When I first saw you at our door, she said, I thought you were another person come to judge me. Then you thanked me. You listened to me. You did not tell me to be quiet or to be grateful that I had been allowed into your presence. You spoke to my father with respect. You made room in this place for an ordinary girl. She met his gaze. At first, I thought my heart beat fast around you because you were a prince, she went on, because all my life I have heard that princes are like creatures from stories. But over these days, I have seen you tired, impatient, worried, amused. I have watched you choose the harder path when an easier one was open. I have seen you risk the goodwill of powerful men to defend those with no power at all. Her lips trembled into something like a smile. I find myself thinking of you when I'm alone, she said. Not of your title, but of your kindness, your steadiness, the way you look at people when they speak, as if they matter. When you enter a room, I feel less alone. She looked down at her hands. I do not know what love should feel like in the stories, she said, but whatever it is I feel when I think of you, when I hear your voice, when I imagine a future with or without you, I cannot pretend it is small. It frightens me. It also comforts me. He exhaled, a breath he had been holding. Is that a yes? He asked quietly. It is not yet a yes to everything that would come with standing beside you in public, she said. There is too much to consider. My family, the kingdom, the scrutiny. I would like to say yes to you first, to the man, to the possibility. That is all I ask, he said. He did not reach for her. Instead, he bowed his head slightly, as if receiving a trust. Then, Charlotte, he said, with your permission I will speak to my father, to Lady Agnes, to those whose counsel I value. We will not rush. We will proceed with care. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, you may say so, and we will pause. She laughed through the tears that had finally spilled over. You speak of courtship as if it were a military campaign, she said. In some ways, it is more dangerous, he replied, but I believe we can navigate it if we walk together. He reached out then very slowly, giving her every chance to step back. She did not. His hand closed gently around hers, warm and steady. Whatever comes, he said, your life will not be something that happens to you while others decide. You have already proven that you will choose your own path. I would be honored if that path runs beside mine. She squeezed his hand. I think, she said softly, that it already does. For a few moments they stood there in the small room, two people who had stepped by different roads, away from the lives others had planned for them, and into something uncertain, frightening, and full of possibility. Outside, the palace went on as always. Candles lit, footsteps echoed, whispers travelled. Somewhere servants discussed Lord Redford's sudden departure. Somewhere else, ladies revised their opinions of the girl from the provinces. Inside the quiet room, Charlotte felt a stillness settle in her chest for the first time in days. Not the stillness of resignation, but of decision. She had chosen once on a dusty road, stepping down from a carriage toward a stranger in need. Now, in a different kind of silence, she chose again. The weeks that followed did not pass quietly, but they were rich in small, bright moments that Charlotte would remember for the rest of her life. At first, the palace buzzed like a hive. Lord Redford's sudden retirement to the country became the subject of 100 half-true versions. Some said he was ill. Some said he had offended the king. Others whispered that an old woman and a country girl had brought him down, which sounded like nonsense and therefore fascinated everyone. In the midst of that, Charlotte's name travelled from mouth to mouth. She is the one who found Lady Agnes in the road, a footman would say to a scullery maid. She is the one the prince visits in the side wing, a lady would remark to her friend, pretending she did not mean anything by it. She is the one who made Lord Redford's smile turn thin, a clerk would say with satisfaction, remembering the hearing. The stories were not always kind. Some called her reckless, others calculating. A few romanticized her into something she could not recognize. But beneath the exaggerations, one simple fact took root. When faced with a choice between comfort and conscience, she had chosen conscience. The first time Charlotte left the palace, accompanied by Alexander after the hearing, the city saw them together in the open for the first time. They sat side by side in a carriage with no curtains drawn this time. The sun was pale. The air carried the distant roar of the river. People recognized him at once. They always did. Hats came off, heads bowed, the usual. Then someone noticed her. "Is that the Bennet girl?" a woman near the market cried, clutching her shawl. "From Maple Hollow?" "Yes," a man replied. "The one who left her own wedding, they say." Another voice joined. "My cousin's wife's sister was at that church," he said. "She swears the girl went white as a sheet when she saw someone in the road and jumped out. Foolish, maybe, but brave." "Foolishness and bravery often arrive together," the woman answered. The carriage rolled on. Charlotte heard nothing of this, of course. She only felt the weight of eyes on her and kept her chin level. "Are you regretting this?" Alexander murmured beside her. "I am regretting that I did not wear a thicker shawl," she said, "but I am not regretting this." He smiled, eyes crinkling. "Bravery and honesty in one person," he said. "The kingdom does not deserve you." They were on their way to the Bennets. Charlotte had written letters, but paper could not carry everything. It could not show her mother's face when she walked in on the arm of the prince, nor her father's attempt at a bow that turned into a half-embrace, nor Emma's squeal that made the neighbor's cat leap over the fence. Mrs. Bennet cried openly. "Oh, Charlotte, look at you," she sobbed. "You are thinner. Do they not feed you?" "They feed me very well, Mama," Charlotte said, laughing through her own tears. "If I am thinner, it is from climbing all those stairs." Mr. Bennet shook Alexander's hand with a firmness that had nothing to do with titles. "Your Royal Highness," he said, "we are much obliged that you return our girl in one piece." "I am the one who is obliged," Alexander replied. "She has done more for my family than I can ever repay." Emma hovered behind them, impatient. "Ask him," she hissed in Charlotte's ear. "Ask him what?" Alexander asked, amused. Emma stepped forward boldly. "Thomas wants to know if you eat your breakfast wearing a crown," she said. Alexander laughed. "Tell Thomas," he said, "that my crown is much too heavy for breakfast. I prefer to eat porridge as a simple man." Thomas, lurking in the doorway, burst into giggles. "He is not so grand, is he?" he whispered to Emma. Charlotte's eyes met her father's over their siblings' heads. There was pride there now, not just worry. "We have heard stories, Mr. Bennet said quietly to Alexander later, when the younger ones had run off and Mrs. Bennet was fussing over cakes. "Some ugly, some kind. Those who would disapprove will disapprove whatever we say. So I will say this only once. I trust my daughter. If she says her heart is engaged where you stand, then that is enough for me. But if you hurt her, I cannot answer for what her mother will do to you." Mrs. Bennet, hearing her name, reappeared with a tray. "I do not like threats," she said briskly. "But I also do not like the idea that my girl might be a curiosity to people who think of her only as a story. She is flesh and feeling, sir. Do not forget that." "I have never seen her as anything else," Alexander said. "I give you my word." He asked then for their blessing to formally seek Charlotte's hand. It was not like the stiff proposals in novels. It was a conversation with interruptions and tears and laughter. "Her hand?" Mrs. Bennet sniffed. "Take all of her, then. She has never done anything by halves." By the time Alexander and Charlotte returned to the palace that afternoon, something had shifted. The visit had anchored their understanding of what lay between them. It was no longer an idea floating in a high room. It had stood in a small parlor among mismatched chairs and teacups and been acknowledged. The next step was the king. Charlotte did not attend that meeting. She waited in her little room, hands folded, listening for footsteps that would mean news. Lady Agnes hobbled in without knocking. "What are you doing sitting like an accused prisoner?" she demanded. "Stand up, pace, curse if it helps. Young people are too patient." "I cannot curse in the king's house," Charlotte said. "Believe me, it has heard worse," Lady Agnes replied. "Come, walk with me. If we stay still, we will come to think that every creak of the floorboards is doom." They moved slowly down the corridor together. "Do you think His Majesty will object?" Charlotte ventured. "I think His Majesty likes his son more than he likes tradition," Lady Agnes said. "He will grumble. He will fret. He will ask clever men what the political consequences will be. And then he will remember that the people admire his son most when he does something that resembles decency. I have seen this pattern before." "Has a prince ever married someone like me?" Charlotte asked. "Not in the precise shape of you," Lady Agnes said. "But unions that alarm the nobility have a long and illustrious history. Some ended badly, some saved dynasties. Do not let the rarefied air up there make you forget that marriages are lived in rooms like this, not on coins." They turned a corner. "What if the king says no?" Charlotte asked quietly. "Then you must decide whether to remain as you are or to leave this place," Lady Agnes said. "But do not borrow trouble. We will know soon enough." They knew that evening. Alexander came to Charlotte's door with a look that was not entirely calm, but not weighted with disaster either. "May I come in?" he asked. She stepped aside. "Well?" she asked, unable to keep the tremor from her voice. He drew in a breath. "My father was startled," he said. "That is a polite word for it. He had always assumed I would choose a bride from among the families he knows, whose fathers he has hunted with, whose grandmothers played cards with his mother. When I told him I wished to marry the daughter of a country solicitor, He asked me if I had taken leave of my senses. "And what did you answer?" she asked. "I told him that for once I had found them," he said. "That for once I felt sure. We spoke for a long time. He raised every practical objection. I answered as best I could. I told him what you did that day, what you did in the hearing. I told him that if I am to be king one day, I must stand beside someone who reminds me what the crown is for." "And he?" she pressed. "He sighed," Alexander said. "He said I am like my grandfather, which is not always a compliment. Then he said that if I insist upon being stubborn, I must at least allow him to be stubborn in his own way." She frowned. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," Alexander said slowly, "that he consents. On conditions, none that touch your character. All that touch how we manage the world around us." He took her hands. "There will be an announcement," he said. "Soon. Carefully phrased. It will speak of a union that reflects the Crown's commitment to the values of the nation, and other such phrases. There will be those who gnash their teeth. There will be those who cheer. There will be some who simply shrug and go on with their day. But we will be engaged, with his blessing." Charlotte's knees felt suddenly unsteady. "He agreed," she whispered. "He agreed," Alexander confirmed. "He also said that if this ends badly, I am never to tell him I told you so." She laughed, the sound breaking into a half-sob. "I did not realize I had been holding my breath," she said. "I have been holding it for both of us," he replied. He untangled one hand from hers and reached into his coat. When he drew it out, a small velvet box lay in his palm. "This," he said, "is not meant to impress you by its size or shine. It is simply a symbol." He opened the box. Inside lay a ring, delicate, a single clear stone held by slender metal. "My mother wore this before her coronation," he said. "She asked that I give it to the woman I chose if I chose with my heart. If you accept it, you accept not only me, but the life that comes with me. The scrutiny, the demands, the limitations. I will not pretend otherwise." She looked at the ring, then at him. "I accept you," she said, "and whatever follows, we will face together. I cannot see the entire path, but I can see the next step. That is enough." He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit as if it had been made for her. "There," he said softly. "Now you are doubly interrupted. No going back." When the announcement came, it was not shouted from balconies at first. It was carried in letters to certain houses, read in private offices, whispered over tea. The formal proclamation to the public followed, simple and dignified. "Their Majesties the King and Queen are pleased to announce the betrothal of His Royal Highness Prince Alexander to Miss Charlotte Bennet, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Jonathan Bennet of Maple Hollow." There were gasps. There were protests. There were delighted sighs. In Charlotte's village, the reaction was particularly vivid. In the small post office, the clerk read the words twice before trusting his eyes. "Miss Bennet," he said aloud, then corrected himself. "Princess-to-be Bennet." Someone snatched the sheet from his hand. "Let me see," Mrs. Harrow's sister exclaimed, reading quickly. Her mouth tightened. Well, it seems Charlotte aimed higher after all. Emma, who happened to be present on an errand, turned calmly. "My sister did not aim at anything," she said. "She stopped for a woman in the road. The rest happened because the world finally noticed. The news traveled faster than any carriage could. Back at the Bennets' house, neighbors came and went, some to congratulate, some to satisfy curiosity. Mrs. Bennet received them all in her best dress, spine straighter than it had ever been. "Yes," she said to one after another, "our Charlotte is to marry the prince. No, we did not plan it. No, we did not push her toward it. Yes, she will remember where she comes from. I raised her, I should know." Edward came alone late in the afternoon, when the first rush of visitors had thinned. Mrs. Bennet opened the door and stared, taken aback. "Mr. Harrow," she said stiffly. "Mrs. Bennet," he replied, hat in hand. "May I speak with you and your husband? And if she consents with Charlotte when she returns next?" Mrs. Bennet hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, he stood in the small parlor like a man who had returned to a remembered room and found it altered. "I have read the announcement," he said without preamble. "I confess it took me some time to accept that it was not a misprint." Mr. Bennet smiled faintly. "It would be a clever misprint," he said. "But no, "It is true. I came to say two things," Edward went on. "First, that I behaved poorly on the day that was to have been our wedding. I was humiliated. I was angry. I was thinking only of myself. In the week since, I have had time to reflect. I have read about what your daughter did beyond that morning. I have realized that I misjudged her." Mrs. Bennet's eyes softened a fraction. "And the second thing?" she asked. "That I hope you will tell her I wish her happiness," Edward said quietly. "Not because of the prince's rank, because I believe she has found someone who appreciates what I did not understand in time. I do not say I would have been the wrong husband for her, but I was not the right one." He set a small parcel on the table. "This is the ring I meant for her," he said. "It is hers by right, though she never wore it. I would like her to have it, if only to do with as she pleases. Sell it, keep it, throw it in a stream. It no longer belongs to me." He smiled crookedly. "As for me," he added, "my mother has already found 3 other suitable young ladies. She is unstoppable. I shall be married off eventually, I have no doubt. But I do not think I will ever again walk past someone in need to be on time for a ceremony. That lesson, at least, I will take from your daughter." When Charlotte heard all this in a letter from Emma, she sat for a long time with the page in her hand. "Do you regret anything?" Alexander asked gently when she told him. "I regret hurting him," she said, "but not enough to wish the day had gone differently. If I had married him, I would not be the person I am now, and he would not be either. Perhaps he will be a better husband to someone else," Alexander said, "one who needs a man who has learned what you taught him." "Perhaps," she agreed. Spring came, soft and hesitant. The date for the betrothal ceremony was set. "It will not be the full wedding," Alexander explained. "That will follow. But this will be public enough to make certain people finally accept that this is happening." "Certain people?" she asked. "Half the nobility," he said. "My cousin in Prussia, several stubborn dukes, a few bishops. They like their realities wrapped in ceremony." Charlotte stood before the mirror in her borrowed dressing chamber on the morning of the ceremony, smoothing the pale gown chosen for her. It was made by the best dressmaker in London, yet it was simple in line, more elegant than grand. Lady Agnes sat in a chair by the window watching. "You look like yourself," she said. "They have tried to turn you into a doll 3 times this week, and you have successfully resisted." "I had help," Charlotte said. "You sent back that horrid veil. It made you look as if you had been caught in a fishing net," Lady Agnes said. "I will not have you introduced to the nation as a haddock." They both laughed, easing the tension. Emma burst in then, invited especially by Alexander as part of the family party. "Oh," she breathed, "you are beautiful." "You are late," Charlotte replied, hugging her. "You were meant to be here an hour ago." "We were waylaid by a carriage wheel in need of repair, 2 cows in the road, and a woman who wanted to tell Mama that she once saw you trip over your own feet," Emma said. "I informed her that you may trip, but you do it with conviction." "Thank you for defending my clumsiness," Charlotte said. Mrs. Bennet followed Emma, face bright with nerves and pride. Mr. Bennet came last, looking uncomfortable in a new coat. "I feel like a plucked goose," he muttered, "but if I must be plucked, I prefer it to be for this." When the time came, they walked with her through the palace corridors to the great hall. Charlotte had seen it before, empty. Now it was filled. Nobles in their finery, officials, representatives from cities and charities. A few faces she did not recognize, yet who would talk of this day for years. The air hummed. At the far end of the hall, Alexander stood beside the king. He was not in full ceremonial robes. He had argued for less, but he wore the sash and the ribbon that marked his rank, and he wore them with an ease that came from long habit. As Charlotte walked down the aisle between rows of watching eyes, she felt again that sensation of standing at the edge of something. It was like the church, months ago, yet utterly different. This time she walked because she had chosen. Her father's arm was steady beneath her hand. "Remember," he murmured, "they are only people in very expensive clothes." She gave a small, breathless laugh. When they reached the front, he placed her hand in Alexander's. "I am not giving her away," he said softly. "I am standing aside so she may stand where she wishes." Alexander's fingers closed around hers, warm and sure. "Thank you," he said. The king addressed those gathered with the practiced solemnity of one who had lived his life in ceremony. "Today," he said, "we recognize the betrothal of our son to a woman whose courage has served this kingdom as surely as any act on the battlefield. Miss Bennet has reminded us all that duty does not reside only in high places. It lives in every hand that refuses to ignore a neighbor's need. We are humbled. The word humbled from a king sent a ripple through the hall. Alexander then spoke, not reading from any prepared script. "I have been given many gifts by fate," he said. "Birth, education, privilege. I have tried to use them well, yet all of them together did not teach me what one young woman taught me in a single morning. She showed me that virtue is not a question of station, it is a question of choice. She chose compassion when it cost her dearly. Today, I choose her, in front of you all, not to elevate her, for she needs no elevation from me, but to walk beside her, so that we may remind each other every day what all of this is for." He turned to Charlotte. "Charlotte Bennet," he said, voice softer now, just for her. "Will you be my wife, my partner, my equal in all things that matter? For as long as we are given days." Her heart swelled so full she thought it might break. "Yes," she said, clear and sure. "I will." He smiled. And in that moment, the hall, the crowd, the history behind them all seemed to blur. There was only him and the future opening like a road neither of them had walked before. They exchanged simple vows, not binding yet in law, that would come at the wedding, but binding in intention. When they were done, the hall erupted in applause. Some clapped politely, some with real warmth. A few did not clap at all, but even they could not deny what they had seen. Alexander led Charlotte out onto the balcony. Below, the courtyard teemed with people, servants, townsfolk, visitors. When the pair appeared, a cheer rose up, rising and falling like a wave. Charlotte stepped forward, hand in Alexander's, and looked out at the sea of faces. Some were grinning, some were merely curious, some shone with a kind of fierce pride. "Wave," Alexander murmured. She did, laughing, the sound carried away on the wind. "Do you feel very grand?" he asked. "I feel very small and very large at the same time," she said. "Small because I am one person among so many, large because they are all looking, and my choices may touch them in ways I cannot see. That is what it means to stand here," he said. "You understand more than many who were born to it." Later, when the hall had emptied and the formalities were over, when speeches and toasts had been made and Charlotte had endured the congratulations of countless strangers, she found herself at last in the quiet of the garden with Alexander. They walked the gravel path slowly, hand in hand. The lanterns swung gently. The night smelled of damp earth and possibility. "Are you happy?" he asked. "Yes," she said, terrified, but happy. He laughed softly. "Thus begins a marriage, then," he said. "If one must choose two companions for life, fear and joy are an honest pair." She stopped and turned to him. "Do you remember the road?" she asked. "I think of it often," he said. "A narrow lane in the country, a woman in distress, a young bride who refused to look away. If you had stayed in that carriage, my life would have followed the lines others drew for it. I would have done my duty, perhaps even well, but I would have been smaller. And if I had stayed in it," she said, "I would have become Mrs. Harrow, respectable, safe. And every time I walked past someone in need, I would have felt that road under my feet. I could not bear that." He squeezed her hand. "We cannot know what lies ahead," he said. "There will be days when we are praised and days when we are blamed. We will make mistakes. We will argue. We will face illness, loss, weariness. But if we can remember that morning, if we can remember that our bond began with a refusal to ignore another's suffering, then perhaps we will find our way back to ourselves, again and again." She stepped closer. "I do not want a life where love is a private comfort only," she said. "I want ours to spill over, to change things even in small ways, to make it harder for people to pretend they do not see. Then that is the life we will attempt," he said, "with the understanding that we are only two people and that we will fail as often as we succeed. As long as we fail honestly," she said. "I can live with that." He looked at her, his expression open, unguarded. "Charlotte Bennet," he said, "you ran from a wedding to save a stranger. You ran into scandal to protect the truth, and now you have run straight into my heart. I do not know what I did to deserve you, but I will spend my life trying to be worthy of the chance you have given me." She smiled through the tears that had risen again, though this time they were soft, not sharp. "You did not earn me," she said. "You met me. You listened. You chose. As I did, that is all. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently, not as a prince blessing a subject, but as a man sealing a promise. They stood there for a while, saying nothing, listening to the distant murmur of the city, the closer rustle of leaves, the quiet beating of two hearts that had found, against all expectation, a shared rhythm. Years later, when people told the story, they liked to linger on the grand parts, the prince, the palace, the scandal, the ring. They forgot sometimes the smaller, truer details, the dirt on Charlotte's wedding dress, the stable boy named Will, the tremor in her father's voice, the harshness of Edward's hurt, the scratch of Sir Henry's pen, the way Lady Agnes's hand felt in hers. Charlotte did not forget. Whenever she passed a carriage going too fast, or saw someone stumble in a crowded street, or heard of funds gone astray, she remembered the ditch, the choice, the way one step had led to another, until she had walked out onto a balcony beside a man she loved. And whenever she doubted herself, or felt the weight of expectation pressing down, she would take Alexander's hand, or he hers, and one of them would say very quietly, "We step down," and the other would understand. In the end, their story was not about a prince plucking a girl from obscurity, though some insisted on telling it that way. It was about a moment when a young woman decided that her conscience mattered more than her comfort, and how that decision set in motion a chain of events that changed not only her life, but the life of the man who would one day wear the crown. They married some months later, in a ceremony that blended grandeur and simplicity, tradition and newness. The bells rang as they had on that first day, but this time when Charlotte walked toward the altar, there was no doubt in her heart. She met Alexander's eyes and saw not a prince to be pleased, but a partner to be trusted. As they spoke their vows, hand in hand, she felt not as if she were stepping off a cliff, but as if she were stepping onto firm ground. She had chosen herself. Afterward, as they walked out together into the sunlight, the crowd cheering, petals falling around them, Alexander leaned close and whispered in her ear. "Well, Mrs. Bennet," he said quietly, teasing, "do you regret leaving your first wedding?" She laughed, bright and free. "Not for a single step," she answered. "Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.